One of the things I think is so great about having a podcast and kind of a place where you're held accountable to put together some thoughts is that it forces me to think through things that I think. I read a quote this week that was saying, I don't know what I think until I write it down, or I don't know what I think until I read what I wrote. There's so much value in this podcast for me in thinking through what I think as I write these episodes out and talk them to you here. And so I'm grateful that you're here listening, and I appreciate your time. Welcome back to the Hey Steph podcast. I'm Steph. I'm a holistic nutritionist and an eating psychology coach. And today I want to talk about a concept I was thinking about on Sunday during one of those long everything showers, as they say. Sundays is the day that I wash my hair, so it's like a big deal. And I was thinking about the difference between being in a groove and being in a rut. And it kind of like snagged my thoughts, and I kept thinking about it over and over. And I thought there's something here. And so I've been reflecting on that idea as it relates to food and eating and health habits. And I think it's a conversation that's worth having. So I want to talk about today what it means to be in a rut versus what it means to be in a groove, and how we can stay out of a rut and get in a groove or stay in a groove. And I want to talk about particularly how being organized can help us establish those grooves that make healthy living feel more effortless, or I guess less effortful, make healthy living feel a little bit easier on a day-to-day basis. This episode is not sponsored by anyone, but I am going to make a quick note here on a brand that I love and that I am an affiliate for, where I order all my protein powder from. The brand is called Just Ingredients. They have the cleanest ingredients of protein powder that I have found anywhere. They're very easily digestible. They're certified. They're legit, and a really trusted, legitimate brand. You can check out their products. They have supplements. Like I said, they have protein powder. I've been taking their omega-3. I love all of their products. They have face oil, they have chapstick, they have lotion. I mean, you name it. They have all the things. Protein powder is probably number one that I love from them. But if you're interested, check out Just Ingredients. And if you want a discount, you can use the code Stephanie Webb. That's STEPHANIE, and Webb, WEBB. What a long name to spell out. Just Ingredients. You can use the code Stephanie Webb to get a discount. And I hope you love that brand as much as I do. All right. So when I thought about what a groove is, I was thinking about a record player. My grandma used to have a record player growing up, and that's my very limited experience with records. But from what I know, there's these tiny, very shallow grooves in the record. And I looked it up, and AI confirmed my suspicion. And apparently this phrase, being in a groove, originated with the, early 20th century jazz scene. And there's this groove, this physical groove on the record that keeps the music on track. And I mean, AI could be wrong. We never know. But I like it, so I'm going to go with it. But the key that stuck out to me here is that being in a groove is shallow, and it's flexible. It's easy to slip in and out, and it's not rigid. You can slip out of it very easily, but you can also very easily slip back in. Now, let's contrast that with a rut. A rut, to me, in my mind, is more like a ditch, something deeper that you're stuck in. And I looked up that phrase too, to be fair, and being in a rut does originate from that image of a wheel getting stuck in a deep groove in the ground. That makes it really difficult to move or to change direction. So being in a rut, I think when we say I'm in a rut with food, it often feels like you're stuck in like this monotonous, unchanging routine, and you feel bored, you feel uninspired. I think getting out of a rut is a lot harder than slipping into or out of a groove. And so I like this idea as it relates to food and health habits. I think getting in a groove and staying in a groove, the key to that I have found is about having routines that feel natural and even joyful. And as I've thought about, opening this new year, I've reflected a lot on where I've been, how I've gotten to where I am now. And I feel so grateful to be in this place where I am now. I've worked really hard for this. I saw a post on Instagram a little bit ago from Lily Eats and Tells, and it perfectly captured how I feel about food right now. I'll link the post in the show notes in case you're interested, but it was an Instagram reel, it was a video, but the text on the screen said 2025, more protein, more veggies, more fiber, more color, less processed food, less decision fatigue, less stressing, less resisting. And then it said 2026, you'll be in such a groove you won't even have to add any of this to your list. You'll love what you eat and be sad when you can't eat at home. You'll be proud of it and want to serve it to guests, and they'll find they love beautiful, healthy food too. And here's the part that I love. You can move on in your goals and focus on the love you want to show your kids, the books you want to read, and the service you want to give. And as I read that, it almost brought me to tears because it very accurately describes my reality right now. For the first time ever going into this year, I have no food related goals. I have lost 60 pounds. I've increased my fitness level beyond what I ever thought was possible for me. I've established really solid routines around food and around exercise. I just feel like all the moving pieces around food and the logistics of healthy eating, there's so much that goes into that: meal planning, grocery shopping, cooking and cleaning. All of those feel very natural to me now. It's very much a part of the way that I live. I love the way I eat. I love my food. I feel amazing physically. And I don't say this to brag of like, look at me. I not at all do I feel that way. I do feel a deep sense of accomplishment because getting to this place where I am, of being in this really fantastic groove with my health and my body, it took years of work, decades actually, if I'm honest. And so now I really do get to, like that post said, get to focus on other things, maintaining this groove and moving on to other goals. Not that I haven't had other goals all along, but I do think getting to this point of mastery, I guess, with habits around food did take a lot of my mental bandwidth up until this point. And now I just feel like, okay, great. I'm coasting as much as a person can coast insofar as I'm not overthinking anything and I'm not trying to change anything. I'm really, really happy with where I'm at. And I want that for everyone. I think it is such a fantastic feeling. And I think part of getting here, if you're not in a place where you're super happy with your habits, your behaviors, I think one of the keys to that is, well, hard work, like keep trying and keep working toward it, but experimenting. I think getting to a place where you know yourself and you know what you like, it takes a lot of work and energy and trial and error to find a good groove that you want to stay in. And maybe I'm taking this analogy too far, but I was thinking that there's probably a certain amount of tension required for that needle on the record player to stay in the groove. It's not just going to sit there, right? There's this tension, and I looked it up because this is what we do when we're researching to write something down. And there is this record player needle, which is called a stylus. It stays in the groove of a record because it's attached to a tone arm that applies, it says, a small consistent amount of pressure, allowing the tiny diamond tip of the stylus to ride along the grooves of the spinning record, following the contours of the recorded sound waves while maintaining contact with the vinyl surface. So I like this image of this tiny tip, right? And obviously we know records would go, that record scratch sound that we all know, even if we never listen to records in our lives. It's easy for it to slip out or to kind of be jostled, right? And bumped. But then you can just come and set it right back in. It's not like this work to dig a wagon out of a rut. It's like just a little adjustment right back into the perfect little track and we're good to go. So staying in a groove, getting in a groove is not effortless. I think it requires consistent, well-applied effort. So experimenting is so important to find what tension you need, what tension works for you. And I think that tension comes in things like meal planning, grocery shopping, using leftovers, even small little things like cleaning the kitchen regularly so that it doesn't become a place that you dread or hate being, but experimenting to figure that out. I mentioned in the beginning the role of organization. I love, and I think I've mentioned before, a woman who has a business called Body Brain Alliance. Her name is Karen Nordine. She has a PhD in behavior change science, which is my life goal. I think that is the coolest degree I've ever heard of in my life. But she recommends choosing 4 attributes that you want to embody over like a 90-day period. And so I chose for the year, my 4 words are disciplined, neat, organized, and calm. Calm is probably the hardest one for me of all of those 4. But this idea of being organized is not just like having my books nice on my shelf or getting my pens neat in a drawer. It's not about necessarily even my physical space. When I think about getting organized, I want to step up even more my planning ahead ability. where I already do a good amount of work of planning ahead, but I want to get even better with that, with organization and being organized so that things are falling into place easier for my future self. So like I said, I'm in a groove with all these things, and now I want to make it even more possible and easier for myself every day. So for example, I'm already in a groove with cooking, meal planning, like I mentioned. And because I'm in a position in my life right now where my work hours are ramping up substantially, I'm having to spend more time working and I have less time to cook dinner. So that's requiring more organization of me. So on Sunday, I looked at my plan for the week and knew what was coming and had my family help me. And we prepped the veggies for Monday night soup and Tuesday night's tacos so that when it was time to cook, I could throw everything in the crock pot in the morning, or I could come and saute things really quick for dinner on Tuesday for our tacos. Things went a lot more smoothly. So this concept of being organized to help get in a groove or maintain a groove, I think is really important. I just don't know if there's a more important skill than thinking ahead when it comes to mastering the small things that make life better down to the smallest detail. And along with this effort I have to be more organized, I'm asking myself in every area, what can I do today to make tomorrow easier? My old self, I'm a procrastinator, and there's a lot of resistance in my brain that I have to argue with. Like, I don't feel like doing that right now, but I'm getting better the more I practice at asking this question: what can I do today to make tomorrow easier? What could I do right now so that tomorrow dinner is better? If I make my bed when I get out of it, then when I walk in the room in a couple hours again, I won't feel this like nagging sense of to do in the back of my mind. If I fold this basket of laundry right now, tomorrow me will be able to go to the drawer and pull my clothes out without having to be like, oh, I need to fold that laundry. So it's on this really small level of minutia, like folding the laundry or chopping the vegetables in advance. And that might seem small. It is small, but these things make my days run so much more smoothly. Wiping the counter so that when I come to assemble my next meal in the kitchen, it's not all crummy and sticky. I have talked before about how important it is to me to plan every night what I'm going to eat the next day. I log my food every single night for the following day so that I don't have to decide. I am convinced that decision fatigue around food is one of the biggest barriers to long-term healthy eating. I don't have to overthink it. I don't have to think it at all. I just do what I planned. I already decided. I already know it's what I want. So I just do it. I kind of am able to turn off my brain and just execute. Just as a side note, I've been talking with my sister, Lara, helping her learn how to log her food and improve her eating habits. And of course, she's heard me extol the virtues of pre-logging your food. Like, who hasn't? If you've talked to me about food, you've heard me say this. And I think it's one of those things of like, oh yeah, that's cool. I'm glad that works for you. But she Marco Polo'd me the other day and she was like, oh my gosh, okay, I get it. Like, it is actually a game changer. And I'm like, I know, I've told you. But until you try it, you're just like, okay, that's nice. But truly thinking ahead every night about what you're going to eat the next day, regardless of how you log it. If you're not into logging your food, fine. But like, decide and plan ahead and be organized so that tomorrow you can benefit from today's you's wise decision making. Another aspect of a groove that I think is important in keeping a groove from becoming a rut is flexibility and adaptability. Getting in a groove is about establishing strong routines, but not routines that are so rigid that you can't slip in and out, like pop in and out. We're going to have things in our life, times away from home, vacation, holidays, having your kids home in the summer. All of those things can change the way your routine looks, but you can still stay in the groove because you can adapt and you can apply pressure differently. So I think learning what your non-negotiables are and sticking with those no matter what, wherever possible. Things like weekly grocery shopping for me, having my meals planned for the week. Like I mentioned, logging my food the night before is a non-negotiable, getting enough protein and fiber every day, deciding what really are like your pillars that you will not bend on, and then what you will bend on. So there are like, I won't bend on my practice of thinking and planning ahead. But the way I plan is going to look different on Christmas Eve than it's going to look on a random Wednesday. But knowing what your non-negotiables are and having that adaptability in seasons where it's necessary can help you keep in the groove of maintaining your health behaviors. I also want to caveat there that I think it's important to recognize the importance of consistency and I want to say this kindly here, but I think a lot of times we can get in the habit of making excuses for ourselves of like, well, I'm busy and I have this going on and I can't get to this, or this feels extra difficult today. I'm sorry, but it doesn't matter. Like, you owe it to yourself to do everything you can to take care of yourself. If you're too tired to work out, get up and do it anyway. Unless you like have a, you just had surgery or something, like, when it's wise. But I think for the most part, our brains are going to try to talk us out of our routines. And the only way to get and stay in a groove is to ignore that resistance from your brain and just be like, not helpful. This matters to me. This is non-negotiable and I'm going to do it whether I feel like it or not. That's what keeps you in a groove. It's so much easier for me now to talk myself into a workout, or almost to turn my brain off and just execute the plan, like I said before, than it was before, where I hadn't had this like years of behavior behind me. It's like the strength of my routine almost pushes me through the hump when I just really don't feel like it. It doesn't matter. I'm going to do it anyway because I've been doing it every day for however many years, right? Like, I'm going to plan my meals whether I feel like it or not, because I know tomorrow me is going to benefit more than today me doesn't feel like it. Like, the payoff is way worth pushing through, if that makes sense. There have also been plenty of times when I've been in a rut with food. It hasn't happened in a while, but I get it and I've been there. And I think the key again is experimenting. And I want to give you a couple tips. If you're feeling bored with your meals or frustrated, you're unsure of what to cook, I've been there. It's no fun. But I want to give you a couple tips of what to do if you are in a rut or if you're looking to get in a groove. I'm going to have to think about whether I think you're in either one or the other. I don't know. Is that binary? I don't think so. Can you be in between? I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that. Okay, tip number 1 is to plan meals you love and you're excited to eat. I know myself and I implement my preferences in my meal planning. I do subscribe to a meal plan. I pay for someone to tell me what to eat every week, but I never do exactly what I'm told because I know myself and I know what I like. So no matter what the meal plan says, I use that as a jumping off point. I know that I want a pot of soup. I love a big pot of chili or soup every week so that I can have easy, delicious leftovers for lunch all week. That just makes me inordinately happy to have soup for my lunch. So on the weeks there's no soup on the meal plan that I pay for, I add it and I'll remove something else that she put in there because I know myself and I know what I want. I also remove meals or before I was paying for a meal plan. I think if you're not paying for a meal plan, don't go getting too much inspiration from like Pinterest or Instagram that require too much of anything, too much effort, too much thought, too much money, brain space, food space in the fridge or pantry, finicky prep, anything like that. Just like, you don't have time for that right now, probably. Maybe you do. Maybe you have lots of time, but most of us don't. As an example here, seafood. I love seafood. I love shrimp. Shrimp was on the meal plan for this week, shrimp tacos. It would have been delicious. But because of the extra brain space that requires for me, I took it off. There might be a time in my life, there may be a season when I cook fish regularly from home, but that time is not right now, and that's okay. This also comes down to meals that I love are meals that I'm going to put the work and effort into preparing, knowing that it's going to perform double duty really well as leftovers. I love soup, like I mentioned. I love, and I don't know how to describe this, but like mixed food, like one pot things, like casseroles, soups, pots of all the things mixed in together. I also love things separate, but I have found that what works better for me in preparing for my week is scheduling leftovers into my days. That's a non-negotiable for me. So having just like a bunch of grilled chicken for the week doesn't actually work well for me because it doesn't reheat well. So I know I'm not going to be excited about a dry leftover chicken breast, but I am going to be really excited about, leftover chicken soup. Another thing here is flavor. I make sure that I plan flavorful meals that taste amazing all week when I reheat them. Maybe that even taste better the second or third day than they did the first day. Things that I will be excited to eat. Being excited for each meal is a big part of my routine. It's a big part of me being in a groove, actually, even if it's subconscious. I refuse to plan meals that I'm not super excited to eat. I am inordinately excited about my food all the time. And eating is one of my passions and one of my greatest joys. And actually healthy eating, flavorful, healthy, nutritious meals, that has brought me more joy than I ever expected. Again, this same sister that I've been talking with on Marco Polo about food a lot, she was saying, I don't know if this is just because I'm eating healthy and things taste better, but like she had a sweet potato and she's like, it was like the best thing I've ever eaten. And I was like, that does not go away. I mean, it has not gone away for me. I derive so much pleasure from food. And that's part of my planning process, is knowing what I love and like giving that to myself. What can I do today that my future self will be happy with tomorrow? Plan a meal that I love. Okay, tip number 2 to get in a groove or stay in a groove is to make your meals realistic and that fit your life. I talked last week about I'm in this season of just like cutting, eliminating unnecessary things in my schedule, in my life, in my time, in my food. And so if a recipe calls for fresh herbs, for example, nope, not now. I just skip over it. I either leave it out of the recipe or I use dried instead. I do not have the bandwidth right now for chopping fresh thyme or basil. And that's totally okay. I absolutely love my food without it, but that's a sacrifice that I'm choosing to make because that's what's realistic for me right now. Another thing is like sauce. Like the meal plan that I subscribe to often includes sauces to add more flavor. And I love them. 6 months ago, every week I made the sauce. I loved it. But right now, in this current season of my life, I'm just giving myself a pass on those. I just remove them from the meal plan. I say no to meals that I know will stress me out or that require more than I have to give. Maybe it's like a salad that requires tons of chopping or finicky, little individual ingredients. Maybe it's even buying a specialty sauce that I don't keep on hand. Like, no, goodbye. I'm not doing that. So make sure that the way you're planning your meals and looking forward to them fits your life and what you want and the way that you want your eating situation to look. Like if you actually don't have time realistically in your actual real life to stand in the kitchen, like, with jazz on in the background and an apron and fresh baking bread and you're slicing basil, like that's not my life right now. Maybe someday it will be. I'm not baking bread right now. I'm not wearing an apron. I'm not putting on jazz. I need my food to fit my real life and be excited about it. Okay, the third non-negotiable thing here that's a tip is to grocery shop with regularity. There is not a weekend that goes by that I'm not going to the grocery store. I always meal plan on either Thursdays or Fridays, and I grocery shop either on Friday or Saturday. I know now that I almost always am going to have to hit up Costco and H-E-B, which is our little grocery store here in Texas. And so we split those up. My husband and I, we go together every weekend. I kind of started dragging him with me, but now it's just one of our regular outings and dates. It might sound lame, but we always grocery shop together. Like almost exclusively we go together and I love it. That might sound totally crazy to you. I think my sister Lindsay was like, what? Like, this is insane. This is not real life. It is for me. We're getting this essential task done, but we're doing it together. And so it feels fun. And maybe that's unrealistic for you. Maybe you have to go, on a Wednesday morning and your spouse can't be there with you. That's okay. But think about how you can make grocery shopping pleasant enough that you're motivated to do it regularly. I'm like actually excited when we're like, we're going to go to Costco on a Thursday night. I'm like, yay, date night. So knowing what you can do to make it more fun. I also have a grocery delivery service from Walmart. What's the opposite of the biggest fan? I'm the biggest unfan of Walmart. Like I hate Walmart actually. This is unsponsored by Walmart. But I did finally cave and subscribe to their grocery delivery service, and I use it for certain things, and that's been good and helpful as well. Whatever you need to do, make grocery shopping a non-negotiable part of your life every single week. Do not skip it. And go shopping with a plan. Don't wing it. Even if you're planning super simple meals and you're just leaving space for like, okay, we're going to have, grilled chicken and all I need to, I know I have this hole to plug in my meal plan of finding a vegetable for Tuesday night as a side for that chicken. And so I'm going to go and see what looks good at the grocery store, but know where you're going to slot that into your week and have a plan of what looks good and where it's going to fit instead of just guessing how much produce you need. This is how we end up wasting money and food and time, and it becomes frustrating and you start to feel like a failure. Like it's just kind of these nitty-gritty food management details that kind of add up and make you start to feel like, I'm not good at this. You are good at this. You just need to think ahead. So instead of winging it, stop winging it. It's making you feel crazy with food. Don't wing it. Make a plan and stick to your plan. So remember, I think the most important part of this episode is asking yourself daily, what can I do today to make tomorrow easier? One of the best ways to stay in a groove is to think about your future self. I love to do the work I need to take care of my tomorrow self. What can I do today to make tomorrow easier? If you think that way every single day, then your days will always go more smoothly than they otherwise would. What I have found is that I always feel loved and cared for. And the person that I feel that from, that person taking such good care of me, is me, which feels really oddly satisfying. And I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a much more positive relationship with myself than I've ever had. Like I trust myself to take care of myself. And I think that comes from asking that question and doing what I need to do. That's what self-care is. It's taking care of tomorrow me. And that feels so satisfying and nurturing. For me, getting in a groove, being in a groove with food has brought me so much more joy than I ever expected. And it's so much more than just food. It's again like love. It's feeling organized and confident and content with the systems I've built and the life that I have because of that. So if you are in a rut, pull yourself out and remember it doesn't take much to start sliding into a groove. Just focus on small steps, intentional decisions, and ask yourself each day, what can I do today to make tomorrow better? That's it for this episode. I hope this episode gives you something to think about, something to inspire you to create a groove in your life that brings you joy and keeps you moving forward. Thanks so much for listening. I will be back next week with more, and I hope to see you then.